Okay, I am standing here on Confederate Avenue near the Mississippi Monument. You have to pardon the noise. The Park Service is cutting down some dead trees. But I am going to do a video series entitled Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg. And we're going to talk about General William Barksdale, his famous charge, which ultimately led to his death here on July 2nd of 1863, where he was mortally wounded and then died the following morning. The overview of this video is going to be talk about the life of William Barksdale up to his death here at Gettysburg. Now, of course, here at Gettysburg, William Barksdale was in command of the 13th, 17th, 18th, and 21st Mississippi, which were in McLaws's division of Longstreet's Corps. Now, William Barksdale was born in Smyrna, Tennessee on August the 21st, 1821. He attended the University of Nashville and he studied law at Columbus, Mississippi. In 1852, he was elected to the House of Representatives. He was a very outspoken man on states' rights and the Southern cause. And on January the 12th, 1861, after Mississippi seceded from the Union, William Barksdale, or Representative Barksdale, resigned his position in the House of Representatives. And just a few months later, on May the 14th, 1861, he was elected Colonel of the 13th Mississippi Infantry, which fought at First Manassas and Savage Station. Of course, here at Gettysburg, Barksdale would have the 13th Mississippi in his brigade. Now, at Savage Station, the brigade commander, Richard Griffith, was mortally wounded, and that's where Barksdale took over command of the brigade. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg Part 1 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Be Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg Part 2 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And we're here in the distance on McPhersons Ridge, not far from General Lee's headquarters, right across the street here, along the Chambersburg Pike. And where we're facing from our camera now, this is where on July 2nd, early in the morning, Barksdale's Brigade entered Gettysburg. When they entered Gettysburg, they seen the debris of battle from July 1st of 1863, and they halted here on the Chambersburg Pike at Seminary Ridge near General Lee's headquarters. And of course, this is where the Council of War was done after the first day's battle on what was to happen. Lee, of course, wanted an attack early in the morning at 10:30 in the morning on July 2nd of 1863. And this is where the story gets strange, because this is where Longstreet countermarched his troops on July 2nd, 1863. This is something that's not talked about that changed the tide of battle. And we did a video series called Longstreet's Countermarch. And I would suggest, before continuing any further, if you haven't seen that video series, before continuing any further on this Barksdale's Brigade video, watch it. Because there's a big void, a time void of what happened between the time that Barksdale's Brigade halted here on the Chambersburg Pike and when they were put into action about 5 p.m. on July 2nd, 1863. They went on a countermarch as a part of McLaws's division on Longstreet's Corps. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg Part 2 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. The Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg Part 3 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Now, General McLaws posted his 4 brigades, which consisted of Kershaw's, Wolford's, Sims, and Barksdale's, near the Wheatfield roads in this area right here. General John Bell Hood began the second day's attack around 4 p.m. Now, we talked about Longstreet's countermarch, which took place just previous to this, and why the attack of July 2nd didn't take place to 4 p.m. Now, Hood begins the attack in this position to my right around 4 p.m. And they would drive across the fields on the extreme right of line toward the Union's left flank, which was blanketing Devil's Den, the wheat field, the Rose Farm, and the slaughter pen, as well as Little Round Top, which you can see there in the distance. Between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, General James Longstreet rode up and told Barksdale, "We are all going in." Longstreet then ordered Captain Gwynn R. Cherry of Barksdale's 17th Mississippi, to send 2 men forward to knock palings from a fence and clear the field for attack. The brigade formed in a line of battle with the 18th Mississippi, followed by the 13th Mississippi, followed by the 17th Mississippi, and then of course the 21st Mississippi on the extreme right flank. And they began to charge and head in this direction toward the Emmitsburg Road. Barksdale rode from behind on the right of his brigade and halted in front of the 13th Mississippi, which was his old command. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg, Part 3 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. At Gettysburg, Part 4 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Now, not long afterward, Adjutant G.B. Lamus of McLaw's staff rode forward with a message for the attack to commence. Barksdale at this time, who had become very impatient, shouted to him, "Attention, Mississippians!" Rather, he shouted this to his brigade. "Attention, Mississippians! Battalion, forward, march!" And they began to march across this very field in this direction here. And again, 2 men had been sent forward. In front of me, you can see some fences. They had begun to take down these fences, or railings from these fences, rather, to clear the way. And where they had to clear the way, just in front of them, of course, over there by the Surfy, would have been the 114th Pennsylvania Collis Zouaves on the right, 57th PA to their left, or to our left rather, and then of course members of the 105th Pennsylvania, the Wildcats. The skirmish line, which is in front, would have been the 63rd Pennsylvania here, and then of course Berdan sharpshooters here to Barksdale's left. So these were what these 2 men, and then of course the brigade, had to contend with as they began this wonderful charge toward the Surfy Farm. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg, Part 4 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Brigade at Gettysburg, Part 5 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. They moved forward with Barksdale about 50 yards in the lead, and they dressed to the colors which were at the center of the brigade. The rebel yell broke out all the way across the field in the direction that faces our camera, and then they ran directly into those regiments that we had talked about in Part 4. First, the skirmishers up here ahead, and then of course here, the 63rd, the 114th Pennsylvania, and the 105th Wildcats. As they came across this field, the deadly fire began to take place. Very deadly fire. At the Surfy Farm, as Barksdale's men unleashed this deadly fire that were directed at the soldiers primarily of the 114th Pennsylvania Collis Zouaves and the 105th Pennsylvania. This field, after the Battle of Gettysburg, was filled with Confederate dead. Some of the dead here were not buried for weeks and weeks and weeks, and bones protruded from the ground, much like you see here today with this dead animal. Of course, the barn here caught on fire. Maybe from artillery fire, maybe it was set on fire, but men from the 114th Pennsylvania Collis Zouaves, and you can see their monument just to the left side of this barn as we look from the rear, were caught and burned alive in that barn. And today, if you go into the National Cemetery, you see stones that are said unknown, but there are a few stones in the Pennsylvania section that say unknown Zouave. And the 114th Collis Zouaves were probably one of the only Zouave regiments that were wearing Zouave uniforms at the Battle of Gettysburg. And because of the destruction where they were burned alive in the barn, probably pieces of the uniform were preserved, and that's how they were labeled unknown Zouave and buried in the Pennsylvania plot. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg, Part 5, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook as they came right here to the Emmitsburg Road. Part 6 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. As the brigade crossed the Emmitsburg Road into Joseph Surfy's peach orchard, they took hundreds of prisoners, including General Charles Graham, whose brigade was defending the salient which Sickles had created. Now with the high ground, Barksdale wheeled 3 regiments, which was the 13th, 17th, and 18th Mississippi, to the left, while the 21st Mississippi trudged straight ahead. So 3 regiments, the 13th, the 17th, and 18th Mississippi, after crossing the Emmitsburg Road, now wheeled to the left in this direction, that way, and the 21st Mississippi goes straight ahead. These 3 regiments here are heading toward the Trossel Barn. This has been Barksdale's Brigade at Gettysburg, Part 6 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.